2 videos in a row on Omega Speedmasters. Not just Speedmasters, but white Speedies. But of course, this right here is not a MoonWatch. It's not a Speedmaster Professional. You can't profess with this watch. And one other thing that this watch isn't. It's not a MoonSwatch. This is the Omega Speedmaster White Side of the Moon. It came out 9 years ago in 2015. I have a feeling that 2015 was before many people got into watches. And I suspect that because it seems like every time a ceramic Speedmaster like this is discussed on the internet, a bunch of people think it's a plastic MoonSwatch. Or maybe they're just trying to be funny, trying and not succeeding. Because when someone asks if this is a swatch, my assumption is either they are new to watches or they have a bad sense of humor, or I guess both is possible. And being new to watches is a great place to be. Frankly, it's better than being old to watches, I assure you. So much learning ahead of you and so many dollars yet to be evaporated, it's beautiful. So if you've never seen this white side of the Moon Speedmaster before, welcome. We're gonna have a look at a very cool watch. And if you have seen this watch before, I guess you can stay, but just keep it down. People are trying to learn here. This watch belongs to a collector named Paul. You might remember Paul from such videos as IWC Pilot's Watch Chronograph 41 Edition Mercedes AMG Petronas Formula 1 Team Watch video. In that video, I asked all of you to thank Paul, and you did, and it worked. We flattered him into loaning me this, so good job, team terrific. What I like about this white side of the moon watch, there are a bunch of things, but the first thing I like about this watch is that it doesn't necessarily look like a $13,000 watch, but it is. If you saw this in an airport, or on the train, or on my wrist as I'm fleeing its original owner, you wouldn't think this is a luxury watch. You wouldn't think that unless you knew, you know? I like stealth wealth watches. I don't wear watches for other people, and I don't think you should either. If you wear watches to impress others, you're setting yourself up for a lot of disappointment. So when I see a watch like this, and people maybe think it's plastic and cheap, but it's actually a finely made feat of engineering, I dig it. I like that kind of subversion. But I haven't even told you the facts yet. This uses a ceramic case, ceramic pushers, and a ceramic crown. A specific type of ceramic called zirconium oxide, also known as zirconia. Compared to other types of ceramics, this has a super high resistance to cracking. That's why it's often used as an industrial protective coating and why it's often used in dentistry. It's formed, it's heated, and in this case it's finished with polishing and brushing. The case is 44.25 millimeters wide, 16.5 millimeters thick, and 50 millimeters long. It has 21 millimeter lugs, 50 meters of water resistance, and weighs 97 grams. It uses the coaxial caliber 9300 movement that has 60 hours of power reserve. $12,800 is the price for this watch, if you can find it, and I'm sure you can, but it looks like Omega no longer makes this watch. For a couple years, I had a very similar watch, the gray side of the moon. The gray and white sides share nearly every spec, they just look different. Even though people love that watch, I never really bonded with it and never felt like I found the right strap for it because the truth is I really want bracelets on all my watches. I've learned that about myself. But I sure don't mind wearing someone else's watch on my
7-inch wrist.
44.25 millimeters wide and 16.5 millimeters thick. This is a large watch. And with all this white, it might even look larger than it is. This watch is not subtle, and I really like that about it. You can spot this from across a room. It practically glows at you. You ask how much more white could it be, and the answer is none. None more white. Well, I guess that's not true. The Speedmaster text is red, which is a nice touch. It's a very simple, glossy, almost glassy dial. The white side, just like the gray side and the dark side, uses a 2-register layout, but it has 3 hands in those 2 registers. The running main time seconds is at 9 o'clock, and at the 3 o'clock register is both the chronograph minutes and hours, counting up to 12 hours. That means that if you started the chronograph at the right time and didn't stop it or reset it, you could use the 3 o'clock register to track a second time zone. You'd also have to keep the watch running, but in a pinch you could use this as a dual time watch. The caliber 9300 is a thick boy. That's something Omega really should work on. Big, thick movement. The movement is so thick The movement is so thick.
How thick is it?
The movement is so thick that the crystal on the back actually bulges out to make room for it. You've seen domed sapphire crystals, but have you ever seen one on the back of a watch? The 9300 uses a silicon balance spring for anti-magnetism, and the balance spring is on a free-sprung balance. It has 2 mainspring barrels, which gives it the 60 hours of power reserve. Arabesque finishing is what Omega calls this kind of spiral machine finishing. It's cool, it's modern, it actually matches the watch. The movement does something that many or maybe most newer Omega watches do. It allows you to set the hour hand separately. In the first crown position, the hour hand jumps and it sets the date. Or you can put the crown in the second position and set the watch like you would most watches. I guess it's nice. If you're traveling between time zones, yeah, it's okay. It doesn't excite me though. But overall, the watch does. It does excite me. I had someone message me and say, can you imagine spending $10,000 on this and then the MoonSwatch comes out? And I understand what that person is saying, but I don't understand what that person is saying. He's saying, wouldn't it suck to have an expensive watch that from a distance, in passing, looks like a cheap watch to someone who doesn't know about watches? No, that wouldn't suck. That's something I've always liked about watches, the fact that nobody notices them or cares. Only I know that I have this amazing machine on my wrist. Only I know the stories and the histories behind that watch. And only I know that all of this makes me better than everyone else. That's my little secret.